you. Oh, man. I hate bios. Oh, my God. It's like, really? All of that? Okay.
You have to stop being so impressive.
But it is relevant because all that happened because of community. And so all of those experiences led me to here, because I had kind of a unique thing of when I first walked into an open mic a long time ago. It's been 25 years now, more. I also at the time got involved in social justice work. There were elder freedom fighters and organizers, especially in Raleigh, primarily Black Workers for Justice and other coalitions who were looking for young folks to get engaged. And so my journey artistically was parallel to being involved in community organizing and social justice work. So my framework for navigating my way through, especially being an artist in North Carolina, where it's not California, it's not New York, it's not, was about how to think about my place in community and the community as taking care of me. It's how I ended up in Durham. I came to Durham in 2004, and Durham just kind of adopted me and said, okay, you're ours now. And Raleigh has been, actually I don't know how Raleigh feels. At first Raleigh was acting a little jealous. I don't know, I think Raleigh just gave in at this point. But it's a beautiful thing. What we're gonna talk about today is a small portion of some work that I did. The Art of Descent is a 5-week course that I did at North Star Church of the Arts in collaboration with Carolina Performing Arts. It was under the context of arts and public service, but because I am who I am, I taught them to let me do an arts and public service course. I was in charge, I was the program director for the grant that this was under. We had previously done this on campus, and of course when you do these things on campus, we took some of the professors who taught the course on campus did some really amazing things with it, but they let me take it to the community, and of course, we radicalized it a little bit. So, but it was a framework that started for me working with the Center for Community Change in 2014 as a writing fellow and looking at some of the work they were doing. At that point in time, it was policy work. They were looking at poverty. Well, they're a policy organization, but at that point in time, they were looking at poverty, and particularly families. Working class folks, some of the challenges in being able to navigate, maintain, and sustain families in this country, given all the constraints. And a lot of what they were talking about and a lot of what they were giving to their field organizers resonated with me, but not because I was involved in social justice work, it was because I was an artist. And that sent off this light bulb moment that kind of was a culmination of years of my experiences, and I came back to the community to talk to creatives. In doing so, we all sort of agreed there is a disconnect, and it led me on this journey. So today, we're gonna kind of talk a little bit about art and change, right? Which sort of kind of led me to my position with the Climate Justice Collective. I've been working with them since they started the Climate Justice Summit, and my role, which is a new role for them, is an intersection of my work and the way that they work. And so I want to talk about that a little bit so that we can think about where we all fit in this as folks who are looking for change and looking to push change, and then all of the artists and creative and beautiful people in the room. But I want to start first by playing, there's an amazing album called This Is Our Environment by Joseph Herbst, H-E-R-B-S-T. An amazing young musician that I was introduced to by an artist named Rashad Ease, who is a hip hop artist and MC who's also a forester. And he was at the time faculty at North Carolina State School of Forestry and got involved in this project. Joseph wanted to dedicate a full jazz project to talking about the environment and talking about environmental climate justice. So my contribution is this piece. And that is not me. There we go.
Mama said by the time the street lights came on, we did it. Mama said clean up your room, we did it. Mama said go outside and play, we did it. She said stay out of grown folks' business, we got quiet and said yes ma'am.
This is called Mother Nature.
Mama said say your prayers before bed, we did it and said amen. She spoke manners, we straightened up and said thank you. This is a reciprocal relationship. She give, we love back. She say, we listen. She work, we give thanks. Come to understand what working is. And tell me, why do we treat this world so disposable? Ain't it disrespectful? When dust settles, shouldn't we be in place to enjoy what the night brings? Not be in practice to mistreat what mama gave. Shouldn't we keep our communities clean? Urban sprawl, environmental waste, landfills, polluted air, trash-covered streets. Shouldn't we preserve our lands, protect our parks, ensure our rivers and lakes are chemical-free? We clear land to build buildings to sit in all day. Aren't we supposed to be able to go out and play? Isn't it an indulgent pretentiousness to interfere with the work those forests do, those flower beds, those fields? Ain't that grown folks' business? Mama, have we lost our way? I mean, ain't each prayer a prelude to a rising dawn? Each morning we wake up as an amen. Is it blasphemous to interrupt that greenhouse effect? Pretending global warming doesn't exist? Where are we? We build to restore. That ain't a thank you. We should build and preserve. But instead we talk to fossil fuels, giving oil companies the right to dismantle indigenous reserves. Our presence on this earth is a reciprocal relationship. She gives, we love back. She say, we listen. She work, we give thanks. Come to understand what work is. I mean, I don't know, Mama. I can't explain it, Mama. But you taught us better, Mama. Mama, this ain't our nature. We have to do better. We do.
And so there's a premise that this is all based on, and that piece is just an extension. One, it was just to be in community with a group of artists committed to lifting and delivering a particular message, and all of us seeking to take the things that we learned from our relationship with organizers and with organizations of folks who are on the front line of this work, and being able to translate that into something we could spread. And that's at the heart of what I believe this connection is. And it's based on a premise, a framework that I operate with that I call radical voice. Of course, radicalism is the idea of going to the root or origin of an issue, the fundamental idea of favoring drastic political, economic, or social reforms, forming a basis or foundation existing inherently in a thing or person. And then the other piece is voice, something likened to speech. The likened to speech is the part that's important. As conveying impressions to the mind, expression in spoken or written words or by other means a distinctive manner of expression. That's art, right? So when I talk about voice, I am talking about art as an extension of all of our voices, because that's what art is. It is a reflection of all of us. And that's what artists hope to do, is to reflect all of us. It's a difficult thing when there's art we don't particularly approve of, or we think that we look at and see as it delivering messages that aren't in our best interest. But what we are looking at is we're still looking at us, which is why it's so difficult to deal with. We may not be looking at our particular community, but it is reflecting in us that needs to be addressed. So we talk about voice, we're talking about voice, radical voice, it's about voice being used in a radical way, with the understanding that like every major social movement in recent history has been chronicled in art and culture. There's always art in conjunction. There's no way for artists to sit, see things happening to people, and art not come. And we continue, and this is globally, right? We are watching folks turn to art as a manner of expression, but also turning to art as a way of being able to make sure the message being delivered resonates past their house, their block, especially in the advent of social media. Now what we have is we have folks putting art on social media with the expectation that it will get shared so that the message spreads. And we've seen this for global conflicts. So much so that it has been outlawed, people have been arrested or under attack for even turning to the art and delivering it because they know if it makes it over here, we're going to respond to it. We can't escape it. It's something we're very used to. But the one thing about this, though, is also how art and the way that art and creatives organize, how similar it is to social movements when social movements have been the most powerful vehicle for change in modern history. It moved from political movements to social movements. Well, the beautiful thing about social movements is they mirror artistic movements in so many ways, both in terms of the way that they're talked about, but also the language and rhetoric of social movements is exactly the way artistic movements are, right? Even today, the way they organize, all of it, very, very similar. But the premise of this is much like my position, which is what has typically happened is that, and it's not a bad thing, but an artist creates, folks who are doing the work see the art, and the art gets lifted up as being an inspiration for folks to keep doing the work. What you may then have is you may have cultural workers being invited to come celebrate wins. So they are either inspiration or motivation or an accent. But the artist is still over here. You may have an artist who is inspired to create because they came over to help do work. They volunteered, they were on the front lines for a demonstration, they leafed, they stood, they stood in the gap, they helped volunteer for childcare, right? And then they go back over here to create. The thing that I have been advocating for the last 9 years is that these folks should be involved in all of the organizing and strategy for the work. The reciprocal relationship created is so powerful because what happens is we are over here as organizers and as folks on the front lines talking about political education, that artists have to get secondhand, right? And generally what happens is they're getting it as they get hold of the information that chronicles the work that has already been done. Wouldn't it be amazing if they were with us while it was happening? Because inherently what it's going to do is going to inform the art that gets created, which can then get lifted up as a model, but also as an outpouring of the movement, while also helping to enhance the language and the communication of the movement. So it's a beautiful thing that cycles. The other thing about it is that it also unlocks a very special power. We're going to talk about that in a second. But first, I want to model this just so we can because I'm one of those. I always tell my students, like, I can say anything, but let's test it out. So let's play with a thing really quick called the haiku. Now, the haiku, American haiku. We've come to understand this over the years. We've been taught 3-line poem, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, a 17-syllable poem. And typically it implies simplicity, intensity, and directness of expression. It's a Japanese art form. Initially, we're working with a form that has been developed out of translation. Original Japanese haiku, waka, tanka, they take a lot of forms that don't typically fall in our understanding of syllable and line count. But for the sake of today, right, we're going to talk about American haiku. And what I would like for each of you to do is to take a moment. Now, what's over here are things called abstractions. This is one of the other powers of art that I love. These are things that we all understand, but our definition of them are based on our own experiences. It's one of those beautiful things that I love because so often these are universal while also being very disparate, right? So we can both be talking about it while having very different conversations. Our understanding of them can also continue to grow so that the way we define them can change over time. This is an example of what it means when we talk about moving, building, standing together. The impact that it could have is because our understanding of these will grow because of our collective involvement with each other. What I want you to do is I want you to take a moment, I want you to pick one, and I want you to write a haiku that is an example of one of these abstractions in action. Okay? I'll say that one more time. Pick one. I want you to write a haiku, 17 syllables. That haiku is an example of one of these abstractions in action. So pick one, picture a scene of it, and then I want you to write a quick haiku about it. I'll give you a couple minutes. 575, and feel free, everybody does it. Use your fingers if you have to, you know. It's totally fine, nobody will judge you. I promise we all got to count our way through it. I love to see all the wheels turning. Makes me happy. I love it. Yeah, that's it. Count your way through it. Yeah, I see it. So I'll give you another 15, 20 seconds, and then what I'm going to need is I'm going to need five folks to say their haiku. That's all. I just need five, just five. So. All right. So, any five, don't all volunteer at once. Yes, I have one. Okay. All right, two. And we have three more. 3, 4. Okay. 5. Beautiful. You can start. Give it a start.
Do you want me to say what my abstraction is?
Please do.
Yes. Okay. This is a moment of purpose from my day today.
Mm-hmm.
In the shallot bed, so many deaths have popped up. Sorry, time to go.
Nice. Okay.
Mine's about fossil hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Whale bones in a creek, 100 miles from the coast, all land is the sea.
Nice. All right, go ahead.
Mine is about joy.
Mm-hmm.
You can open wide, using a strong back to hold while letting go.
Okay. Yep.
Mine was about purpose.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
AirPods in pocket, the world is back in color. My attention here.
Beautiful. Okay.
I apologize, I misunderstood the direction.
Okay, it's fine. Whatever your haiku's about.
What's wisdom? Truth
Yes. It's fine. Beautiful. So now the wonderful thing about this is that individually, each one of these pieces are amazing. But when we talk about an integrated strategy for change as part of this idea of the art of dissent, is that think about the possibilities when we can do this, because each one of these haiku can become the basis for sending a very necessary message out into the world. But there's also some other things that can happen, because collectively, all of these haiku can send a larger message about what we want to be able to have happen for people, right? All of these haiku can become the basis for being able to be a campaign of messaging that gets delivered. Each one of these haiku could become the central theme for a study group and a gathering of folks in order to be able to build, connect, learn, and respond to, right? Each one of these could become the basis for a t-shirt that could get sold in order to raise funds to support the movement. Each one of these haiku could be the source of an exhibit where communities, especially disparaged and damaged communities, let's think about communities in eastern North Carolina along the coast, are actually given each one of these haiku in order to respond to in terms of photographs, and that each category of photographs is defined by each haiku, right? The possibilities just from each of these individual moments is endless, but that only happens through collective action, because it takes artists, creatives, organizers, and frontline workers together in a room to be able to imagine and see that these haiku could have 6, 7 lives. Otherwise, what they become is they become haiku that may get read at the beginning of a meeting because someone happened to read the book that has these haiku in it. Or maybe they get put in the corner of a flyer as an inspirational quote for an action that's taking place, right? They continue to be an accent while the writers of the haiku continue to be supportive and encouraged, but not involved, right? Right? Even maybe in the audience or hand in hand at the action, but was never in the room when it was decided how this would all happen, and aren't in the room after the action, even though they've been inspired by everybody's energy to do the work, right? Personally may make change in their life and continue to write more haiku that may end up in a book that gets read, but never involved or a part of the organization that's doing the work. I think we can't keep doing that, right? I think it's a disservice, because we're also talking about communities that are continuing to produce more artists who are producing art out of the circumstances that we're fighting, but aren't directly connected to the movement, but have influence. And we're at a point where we have to start to consider that whoever we aren't engaging, we have the possibility of losing, because they're going to get engaged by an institution or a system somehow. And what are those? Is it a larger industry? Is it an academic institution? Is it a creative marketing agency? Somehow they're going to get engaged. And where is that brilliance going to be mined, and which way is it going to be directed? So, in that, it's a couple of things. We understand, and I won't spend too much time here because we know what art can do, right? We know how powerful art is, and we've seen a number of examples. We know that there's a powerful possibility. What I want to get into really quick before my time is up is 3 things. The first of these quotes, this is where I get excited. I've got 3 quotes in here plus an anecdote that just really, really get me. The first is this first one. We call upon all honest intellectuals, all honest writers and artists to abandon decisively the treacherous illusion that art can exist for art's sake, or that the artist can remain remote from the historic conflicts in which all men, all of us, patriarchy, must take sides. We call upon them to break with bourgeois ideas which seek to conceal the violence and fraud, the corruption and decay of capitalist society. This is even more important when we talk about environmental issues or environmental justice, because of the individualism that gets promoted so often as a solution, which we know is not the adequate solution, right? It takes collective care, it takes a radical vision of change. We have to seek new methods, and we have to kind of move from some of these individualistic things that kind of put pressure on all of us individually to change our habits as, as a method of changing things, but also shames particular communities who do not have the privilege or benefit or resources to make some of the changes or take advantage of some of the things that are being presented us as alternatives. So we gotta really get out of that thing. Then the other one is true art, which is not content to play variations on ready-made models, but rather insists on expressing the inner needs of man and mankind in its time. True art is unable to not be revolutionary, not to aspire to a complete and radical reconstruction of society. That it must do, were it only to deliver intellectual creation from the chains which bind it, and to allow all mankind to raise itself to those heights which only isolated geniuses have achieved in the past. Like the Climate Justice Collective and so many other organizations, it is that idea of complete and radical reconstruction of society that has been taken up. That if we're going to really affect, and we're thinking about climate and environmental justice, it is a radical reconstruction. We're not going to get there with short-sighted solutions. We have to kind of get to a place where we can start to radically change. Here's the thing, in order to do so, what we have to be reminded of, and this is the thing about social movements, is that we have to be reminded of what it will look like when we win, so that we are continually understanding of where we're going. And that is the power of art, right? The thing about a movement is that you have to articulate the source of the issue, and you have to direct that energy towards a target. And you have to do that until you have actually brought about change. Anytime that gets disrupted, the movement gets disrupted, because all of that effort, all of that energy, it's taxing. And without being reminded of what you're going to do and being reminded that there is something possible and you will win, then you lose folks, right? The other side of this can give you alternatives that seem like safer, more comfortable, and also it is hard for folks to be on the front line of change, right? But it's also hard to find people to replace them if we're not able to continually help people understand why it's necessary. We have a vehicle at our disposal that can continue to remind us of what this is all about, and that is art. Which leads us to this next thing about, when I talk about the manufacture of dissent. So, Stephen Duncombe, co-founder of the Center for Artistic Activism with Stephen Lambert, has this piece called Dreams. You can find the PDF online. They make it available, about the manufacture of dissent. And he says, unless progressives acknowledge and accept a politics of imagination, desire, and spectacle, and most important, make it ethical and make it our own, we will bring about our own ruin rather than preservation. And here's the reason why. So in it, Ron Susskind, who is a writer I had heard about, a popular writer, was working on a piece for the New York Times. This is the G.W. Bush administration, Daddy Bush. And he recounted a conversation between him and an unnamed senior advisor to the president. Listen to this, y'all. I just want y'all to listen to this passage. Here we go. All right, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up. Okay. The aide said that guys like me were in what we call the reality-based community, which he defined as people who believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. I nodded and murmured something, Ron, this is Susskind. I nodded and murmured something about Enlightenment principles and empiricism. He cut me off. It's not the way the world really works anymore. He continued, we're an empire now, and when we act, we create reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will, we'll act again, creating other new realities, which you can study too, and that's just how things will sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left to just study what we do. Yeah. Yeah. He said, we're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left to just study what we do. So there's this quote by James Baldwin that talks about what the artist is, but here's the reason why they're so powerful, and this is the way I'll close, is the belief that we are the world's actors, that we shape reality. So you can study something, we'll just, the pretentiousness, just the privilege, the arrogance, right, of it all. But here's the thing. If over here are people who believe they're the world's actors and that they can shape reality and they can shape it however they want, to combat that, the first thing that comes in my mind is that there is a body of folks over here who also spend their whole careers in craft looking to operate outside of the literal, right? They're encouraged to stretch their imagination, to think outside the box, to picture, to dream. They're literally taught to create reality, right? To make meaning out of nothing, to make things make sense, to make connections. To not use that body of brilliance when on the other side there is a group of folks who are recklessly going about acting in the world doesn't make any sense. It is to leave one of our most powerful weapons at home against folks who are wielding a whole other kind of weapon with no regard. And so in that, that's the power of this. For a really beautiful example, I want you to just note this name, Nicholas Smith. He started this series of art. Since then, he has gone on to be a really, really, he's done so much work as an illustrator. But it's an example. A reason why I'm showing you Nicholas was that he says, my experiences have shown me that there's a natural link between art and activism. With activism, there's so many problems and issues in the world. Sometimes you wish you could just grab everybody and direct them towards a solution. Putting those issues isn't in the words isn't that easy for me, but art innately has the ability to move people, to shout out, this is wrong, this needs to be fixed in a matter of seconds. So I want to make sure we leave time. Of course, there's questions and things like that, but thank you. So I want you to just think about how we can both not just use art, not just use cultural, but how can we think about the place for artists and cultural workers within the work that we're trying to do, young and old. Thank you.